The year 1965 is the year that the government became essentially Big Daddy government, or as I like to call it, Sugar Daddy government. Meaning, the government began to take the place of an individual within the home, more specifically within the said black community, where you now had a group of individuals who are now being integrated against the will of the Democratic Party. Don't ever forget that, right? We got this revisionist history that the Democratic Party has always been for black folk, for marginalized peoples, etc. No, the Democratic Party filibustered the Civil Rights Act, which means that they stalled the Civil Rights Bill for close to 75 days. Yeah. So these individuals were forced to basically pass the bill through Senate or the House and then the Senate, with the majority Republican House and Senate, that then forced the bill into the president's office. And so, as the Democrats oftentimes do, they snaked their way into an opportunity for more power. And so a man by the name of Lyndon Baines Johnson, otherwise known or more popularly known as LBJ, then created a scheme with his own team where they would essentially get the black vote for the next 60 to 100 years. And on that day, he was quoted as saying, we're going to have these voting Democrat for the next 60 years. And essentially, that's exactly what happened, right? I mean, we're looking at literally year 60 now. That was in 1964. Fast forward to 2024, and we still have 80% of black men voting for a scam. We have 97 to 98% of black women voting for a scam, as opposed to voting in alignment with their own actual values. Instead, they vote with emotion, and they vote on the basis of their conditioning and their programming. Right back onto that Democratic plantation, just as LBJ had professed, or more specifically had manufactured and engineered in order for this to be so. Now let's get back to the point at hand. Big Daddy government, Sugar Daddy government. So there was a series of policies that were passed, within Lyndon Baines Johnson's term, like his first official term, I guess you could say, because the man took the seat after being vice president under JFK, who was, well, we all know what happened to that man right there. And then we have LBJ stepping in and essentially bombarding the White House with executive order after executive order. And not in the Trumpian style where these are like pro-American bills, but instead they were strategic bills in order to get a very specific demographic in the place that he wanted them. And that's exactly what he did. So you saw black folks basically go overnight from being self-sustaining, being self-reliant, being essentially opposed to welfare, right? Within the black community in America, it was looked down upon to be on the welfare system or to rely upon the welfare system. If you needed help for the time being, that was fine and that was different. As a matter of fact, most of the people per capita who are on welfare were white. I mean, you could break down by demographics, etc., but most were white folks. This was not something that was accepted within that nucleus of the said black community. It was only once they accepted this way of being, it was only once they bought into that program, it was only after the social engineering of these individuals do we then see this degeneration of the community where fathers are now being replaced by sugar daddy government. Let me break this down in a real practical way. Imagine that you are making $3,000 a month after taxes at your job right now, right? You're making $3,000. Now imagine that government is able to give you $4,000 a month. Which one of those deals would you take? Most people, if they were to be honest, would obviously take $4,000 because $4,000 is a whole $1,000 more, 25% more than $3,000, right? Most people would take $4,000 over $3,000. It's very simple. Now, the incentives that the government created essentially were to say, look, if you have these things that you meet, these requirements, these stipulations, right, that you can mark off, we're going to give you more money. Simple as that. So the more kids you end up having, then we give you more money for each child, which sounds altruistic. It sounds It sounds like a humanitarian or philanthropic sort of mentality, right? I'm going to take care of your children. I'm going to make sure that you have more because you have more to take care of. However, there's just a tiny little stipulation in some of these welfare reforms, which when you really think it through, you think to yourself, okay, why would you throw that in there? And that was that a single woman would have these incentives, or a single woman would essentially have a greater chance, or maybe the only opportunity to some of sugar daddy government's money, whereas a married woman will be cut off from those benefits. A married woman would not have those opportunities. And it was not just off the basis of whether or not the man was working, whether or not this man, was highly successful or not, but instead, if you were married, that was then considered as, how do I put this, problematic. It was seen as an issue. You were better off being single. And so these incentives began to create a system, one generation after another, where essentially, if you're a woman in a household, you're thinking to yourself, okay, this man who I'm dealing with, do I really need him? And maybe you did, because you did. And maybe you thought to yourself, you know what, I would rather have the man in the house. But then came in the feminist, or the second wave of feminism, right? The feminist movement that said, you know what, ladies, you actually don't need this man. As a matter of fact, this man is your enemy. As a matter of fact, this man is holding you back from the person that you could truly be. And once that came in, the whole game changed. The moment feminism met LBJ's policies, or his incentive programs, now you had black women willing to not only part ways with that man because they no longer, quote unquote, need him. He is now the problem. He is what is now referred to as, the patriarchy, toxic masculinity, right? He's the issue. You get rid of that man, and you already have somebody to fall back on. As a matter of fact, you have a better deal with the one you're falling back on. And so you get one generation, 2 generations, 3 generations of that. And as a result, you now have a generation that is reliant upon the welfare system. Big daddy or sugar daddy government is now in control. Now, some people have this belief that this is maybe for the better, and that this system is actually helpful to those that it purports to help. And on the surface, it does look that way. On the surface, yeah, sure, why would we not want to help individuals who need the help? But the problem is, you actually start to create a mentality where people become powerless. They become helpless. Like they call it, learned helplessness, right? You begin to program and condition one generation after another to become reliant as opposed to self-sufficient. When you take away the taboo of something, you then start to normalize that thing. So you have children who are okay with being on food stamps, not for the moment of the time being while the parents are getting it together, but instead as just a way of life. And so when you have a threat to that system, you obviously have a voter base that is going to be mobilized, that is going to be moved off of that policy, right? When we talk about, Trump, he's taking away these and these benefits. First of all, a lot of that is just misinformation, or straight up lies, propaganda. But even if he was to cut half of these programs, right? Even if he was just to cut them off for the individuals who are essentially taking advantage of the system, and there are many who take advantage of the system. My fiance works in the system, so she understands that there are individuals who will simply go into these, into these government-based programs as far as medical leave, or individuals who are looking to be paid or compensated by the government because they've been injured severely, whatever it may be. These sorts of individuals can simply go through a lifetime where it's just the norm, right? Mama did it, grandmama did it. Well, you're incapable of working. I mean, you choose not to work, but you're poor, destitute, you're disabled. Now you fill a whole bunch of other markers. And that's just normal. There's no taboo around it. There's no shame around relying upon everybody else. Because let's not get this twisted. When the government says that they are paying for something, they're flipping the bill. Old Bernie Sanders. We're going to pay everybody's college off. Everybody's going to get this, raise the minimum wage, or whatever it is. The money that the government is using is our own money. They're going to create a higher taxation on the population in order for them to meet those quote unquote goals. So anytime that a politician is selling you something, what they're really selling you is what they're going to do with your money and likely not do with your money, right? I'm going to do this, this, and this once I have your money. Oh, they're going to get your money or access to your money. Best believe that. But are they going to follow through on those promises? We'll see about that. So when you had LBJ, who is unfortunately still seen as kind of a hero within the far left, these radical, woke, sort of institutions, they still read his works. Like not too long ago, a few months back when I was still in Cali, I was at a coffee shop and I seen, it was kind of this hipsterish little coffee shop. I just used to like the vibe of it. The people I didn't really, mingle too much with. I was just there to get my work done or to read or whatever it was. And I saw somebody reading an LBJ book and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I remembered, you're in the middle of Roseville right next to Sacramento. There's, that's what these kids are still reading. They're still believing that this man is a hero. And again, on surface level, on paper, you may very well think that this man was looking to do what was best for black folk. He was looking to do what was best for those who have been marginalized, those who came out of, Jim Crow, etc. Forgetting that these were the very same politicians who created the Jim Crow laws and enforced the Jim Crow laws. This is the very same party, who created the KK and the other K. These are the very same individuals. They have not changed. Instead, they have changed their approach. They have changed their ways. I'm not saying that there have been perfection in any party, not in the slightest, right? We're still dealing with humans here, but let's not get it twisted when it comes to who these people actually are. You may have the neocons or those who kind of have this bipartisan sort of weird enmeshment, like the Clintons and the Bushes and the Obamas or whatever it is, right? That class of individuals who essentially really, you might as well just traded one for the other. But when you look at what the parties represented from their inception, from their birth, let's not forget that it was 1854. 1854, the creation of the Republican Party for the sake of the abolition of institutions such as slavery and polygamy, which was black folks' rights and women's rights. That was a Republican Party. Oh, but there was a switch, but then there was a party switch. No, there wasn't a switch of the party. There wasn't a switch of the leadership, just in the tactic of one of the parties. They just changed their approach. Instead of, outwardly showing their disdain, their racism, and, how they view you as lesser than them, they essentially just created a new way about it, which was to infantilize you or to make you dependent upon them in the same way you did on those plantations, just through policy. So now they're giving you a check. You're not realizing the check they're giving you is not their money. They're using that for control. But what they're using is our money. What they're using is the taxpayer dollar. And you become reliant. And for me, I say, look, the shame of relying upon another is that you will never actually feel in control of your life. You never actually sustain power over your own reality. Personal agency is kicked out the door. And there is nothing that seems like more of a hell than that sort of experience. Nothing in life. I could never fathom waking up every single day believing that if I don't get that check from the government, I can't make nothing happen for myself. That is a very sad reality, folks. A very sad reality. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of folks who consider themselves minorities or marginalized. I don't even know why you would put titles like that on yourself. Oh, I'm marginalized. Do you know what it is to be marginalized, to be out in the margins of society? To choose to be that perpetually? Old quote. Somebody can probably find exactly who said this quote at this moment. But we may not choose where we start, but we choose where we finish. That's what life is about. Last night, I was watching at least the first 2/3 of the, Hillbilly Elegy, the movie about J.D. Vance's life. You guys should definitely check it out. This guy's extremely inspirational, and, hopefully he has the opportunity to become 80 or 87, 48, the 48th president of these United States, because the man came from dire circumstances. I'm not going to give you any spoiler alerts as to how his story unfolds, but there's an incredible life that was lived and is still being lived by this man. But this man was born into dire circumstances, into poverty. He was born into fatherless home. And yet he decided to become everything that his own ancestors, his own predecessors were not. He made different decisions and therefore got different outcomes out of his life. And that was based upon personal agency. He didn't make himself a victim of life. He made himself the commander of his life, the commander of his captain, or the commander of his ship. He steered the direction that he wanted his life to go into. Whereas some people are just essentially allowing themselves to stray around the way and just go about the water with no direction, just aimlessly going through life, blaming everybody else for their plight, looking at everybody else as a savior or as a reason why they are where they are. Because the same person, it's like, I think of these pigeons sometimes who, if you feed them once, feed them twice, feed them 3 times, you're their best friend. Don't feed them 4 times, they may attack you. Right? These same individuals who believe that this democratic plantation has been taking good care of them, Master's been taking good care of me. The moment they cut those resources off, now they are the enemy. Instead of looking at yourself to say, okay, yes, we might all go through, periods of our life where you have the need for certain resources. I was in a place in my life for almost a year when I was dependent on, food stamps in order to get by. I needed money, loaded up on a card while I was getting my situation together, still paying everything else off. I signed up for nothing more than what I genuinely needed at that time, where I had, 1 or 2 things in the fridge and like empty fridge type of vibes, I was maybe 24 years old at the time, 23, 24, and I was really looking to like get myself together. And that was a time in my life where I felt ashamed. I felt ashamed to pull that card out and, damn, like I need, to round some government money in order to pay some of my food off or whatever it was. And as soon as I got myself resituated, I canceled the entire thing. I'm cool off that. Even though I only had about a third of the money that I would have had on that card, I said, okay, I got enough to take care of myself. Let me start budgeting. Let me start getting myself together. Let me get my finances in order. Let me take care of everything else. Let me be diligent over my money. Let me be a steward over my money. And when I started moving in that way, I gained back that personal power, that personal agency. The reason why it was taboo to be on welfare was not to say, oh, you're a terrible person because you're poor. It's to say that, man, I believe that I can do something, I can be something, and I can have something based upon my own merit, based upon my own abilities. And anybody who doesn't believe that you can do that is somebody who does not believe in you. Like the party that tells you, or the group of individuals, the institution, the organizations that say you need us, you can't do within yourself, is an organization who believes that you are less than capable, you're less than able. And that individual, those groups of individuals don't actually see you as an equal. Because why don't they need the same handout? Why don't they need the same, programs, etc., the same exact system to continue to take care of them as a child? They don't need it because they know that they can. And then they look at you and they see as you can't. Is that not 3/5 of a human being? Is that not the very same slaver who saw you as less than human? Sugar daddy government. You need to kick sugar daddy government up out of your life. The best government is the one that takes care of its job and nothing else. Simple. Nothing else. Its job and nothing else. Get out of the rest of it. Get out of the rest of my business. Okay, we have programs. Okay, great. We put money into a pool and, it takes care of the people who need to be taken care of at that time. Those who take advantage, cut them off. Cut them off. Yes, cut them off. Able-bodied, able-minded people who are supposed to be out here being productive, but instead we incentivize them to do nothing with their lives. Cut them off and have them go into the real world and actually create something for themselves and then obviously the rest of the world, the rest of their environment, the rest of their community. And they will benefit and everybody around them will benefit. Their children will reap the byproduct. I've heard so many stories now of individuals who have come out of poverty, who have made decisions that are different, and now they have broken a generational curse. And that's what I wish for every person who hears my voice today.
Used to be afraid of the dark, place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's night. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 365, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up. You know them constellations. Constantly gazing